So, welcome everyone. Um, I think we can start. The others can join as and when they come. So, today we have week 7 uh, prayer with us, December 29, 1913. The talk by Dr. Alok Pandey is in front. And as always, I would request each one of you or those of us who would like to share of what was their experience of going through the prayer and going through the transcript and the talk. How could we relate to it for our day-to-day life, and any reflections, any things to share are most welcome. Yes. So whoever wants to go first.
I can go.
Yes.
So for me, like the crux was like right in the beginning where it said that, drop the past just like that and move towards the future. I mean, at one aspect, you do move on, but yet there's something that feel the you feel that past is a add-on. You usually I don't see past as a baggage. I mean, I see it sometimes, but it feels like it has given me something, like it's part of me. To see that, this is also a possibility that one can just drop it. Drop is such a natural thing, right? You let something go and off it goes. That how, I mean, it can be this simple that one can use the word drop for it was quite profound for me. And that aspect was also very interesting, how we like to perpetuate the past, how we want to build on it and kind of justify it and stick to it as much as
Yeah.
possible, and again make decisions based on it. And then the condition of immortality again was very beautiful. I have heard this before, but again it was beautiful to read that. I mean, it's again, it's something that seems very distant, but still it's beautiful to read it, even know about it, that
Mm,
perpetually reborn.
mm,
Because in a regular day-to-day life, we don't see that consciously that much. Maybe it's happening, but we certainly, I don't help in that happening, it's just happening on its own.
mm.
And this I would, if you could talk a bit on this body can undo itself forward, future words where it said that, like, what did it mean to you, how do you understand it?
Mm.
And then this also, when you are conscious of the whole world at each moment, see how it vanishes and how it is being recreated, what it meant to you when you read it.
Mm.
And the collective convention, using it to drop the past. I thought that was very smart. You know how we always kind of, like, if I talk about myself, I'm always looking for things that are not right, in festivals, and how they kind of don't have much meaning, at least for me. But to be able to use that as again a stepping stone, kind of that,
Yeah.
okay, everybody is doing and you also get into that flow.
Yeah.
That was quite nice. And sacrifice, the definition of it, how it's supposed to be, like, what how I understand it, it's something that you give, you do when you don't want to, and it's something that is being taken away, and it's like you're peeling it out of you, and that's a sacrifice. But this is again such a simple definition, that leave behind that which is no more necessary for your growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, it's like no drama, right? Okay, okay, past,
Mm.
leave it. Sacrifice, you see this and all, and leave it, kind of.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I wonder that what was the use of the vital, if there was no vital or emotions and stuff, it would be so easy to mechanically just,
Mm.
but again, then because I guess they were looking for some rasa, whoever created, so that aspect would not be there. But certainly for us, maybe it would be easier to do things mechanically. I don't
Mm.
know. And
Mm.
yeah, and again, the shake of the past, like falling dust. Again, the drop
Mm.
and the falling dust, like the visualization of it I felt was very powerful because it does soil the past. We
Mm.
see it, and
Mm.
yet we feel it's something sacred that we are doing, carrying the
Mm.
past. And vain mirages, that's again the word that the phrase I really like, that when we look behind, or
Yeah.
it should be like, because they're like even our mistakes, they said, like, don't get, it's like how we kind of always circulate between a guilt and a victim identity. So
Yeah.
both of these here are categorized under somehow illusions and
Yeah.
vain mirages, which is quite, yeah, evident, and yet we keep forgetting.
Yeah.
And this where it said about how the darkness follows us, like again in
Yeah.
everyday life, it feels like again, I'm back there, back there, back there, and yet you're not. And to see that that is the course of how things go,
Yeah.
reassuring, and again it's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the darkness feel like a falling cloak. Again, that's such a natural fall. Again, I guess I'm
Hmm.
just repeating myself, but how easy it seems the way it is described, and
Hmm.
still it does not feel easy. I guess it's just maybe, I don't know, happening and not a doing. I don't know, but the ease defined was beautiful.
Hmm.
And this grace can undo karmic knot. There I have a bit of a confusion that, like, when say I've read, say, the like about, say, Mahavir and Buddha, how they feel that because of their past karma, there are certain things that they have to do. Like Mahavir, he used to stand on the corners and all and allow people to hit him with stones because he felt that that is kind of, he's balancing his karma, he's living those karma. But again, in mother's prayer, it's many a times it comes out that just grace can just undo it. So I don't know what
Yes.
is workings
Yes.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this disinterested heart, I have
Mm.
another question in that. Like, then that heart would also then not have aspiration, would it? Like, because how it says, like, sometimes we, like, I read that you need to really aspire. And on other aspect, they say that, she knows everything.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's a bit of, I mean, although it feels okay that at times when you want to, if you're doing anything, then aspire, and probably there's a state of not doing anything. In that, it's just disinterested and you're totally in flow with how things are, maybe that. But just the
Hmm.
question was that would the disinterested heart, most likely it would not even have an aspiration.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And lastly, this, how it said that divine peace and harmony to grow upon earth, regardless of what happens to us personally. So
Hmm.
that I felt, like I was just editing a book, on freedom fighters and India's struggle. So in that also, it's like how the freedom fighters, when I'm reading about their life stories, that was it, right? Like personally, they did not matter at all. They were ready to
Yeah.
give their lives in a
Yeah.
fraction of a second. But just like anything that would have, their mother India get its freedom. So again, that
Yes.
same visualization I felt in
Yeah.
these last lines. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Who would like to share next?
Yeah, Monica, I'll go.
Yes, Chitraji.
Yeah, actually, this is true. Every time you can shed the past and move forward. In mother's path, it is very much true. But what is my feeling is, even though you won't stick to the past, that those thoughts will always come to you, no? Through
Hmm.
memories, you will live in the past. Even if you go and thank mother for, to avoid some crisis, there those things will run as a picture in front of me.
Hmm.
Yeah, that past things will always linger, but maybe it won't have any much importance. That is the thing for me, actually. And again, as Taru said, grace will annul the karma. I felt actually in my life, I used to feel whenever I open fully myself and surrender, definitely I feel that karma is completely erased. If some of them are left, it is not, I mean, the surrender is not full. That is my feeling actually. The receptivity and the surrender is not full. That is why we feel the effect of those karmas actually. So next, and that Gita's verse, no, Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja. That is
Yeah.
actually, yeah, very true in my life actually. Because
Yeah.
at one time, every circumstances pushed me to do all the pujas with the, as he said, Alokda said, no, through pandits.
Yeah.
That time I was pulled to do all those things, but suddenly this Bhagavad Gita came to me through one of my friend actually. She used to teach. I went to that class and fully, I mean, learned the Bhagavad Gita verses. And then I got that book, Sri Aurobindo's essays on Gita, no?
Yes.
Yeah. Then that time he insisted upon this verse only. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam braja aham tva sarva papepyo mokshaikshayami ma shucha. So if you abandon all dharmas and surrender unto me, I will relieve you from all the sins.
Yeah.
This really worked. Actually, those pujas and went to pandits alone, nothing worked for me. Nothing worked in
Hmm.
the family. Yeah.
Hmm.
But this verse gave me lot of solace inside me.
Hmm.
So in this context, this prayer is, I mean, I feel it's very in the highest level because the shedding of past is not easy, I feel.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
this
Yeah.
is what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. So anyone who would like to share next? Okay. Yes. Yes, Eric, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As I was listening to Dr. Pundi, one part that jumped out to me the most was how he said that there can be a danger in identifying as a yogi or a sadhak on the path,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
it's safest and best to just identify as a child of the mother and
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
serve and practice from that identity. And man, right when he said that, that felt so true and so simple. And I noticed that I had just experienced in my own self kind of like a little danger of ego in developing about being a disciple of Sri Aurobindo the Mother or something along those lines. But what was so funny for me is that I had tried to boil down so many different identities over the years, being a man, an American, being Eric, being Jewish, all the things. And it just seemed so
Yeah.
simple. Oh, I can just be a disciple of Sri Aurobindo and Mother. And then he said, well, hey, hold on. It's even simpler just to be a child. And so that to me was really relieving in a way. It's just that simple, just to love and serve. And so just kind of
Yeah.
continuing to see that identity winnow down and winnow down,
Hmm.
um, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So that kind of jumped out for me as he was speaking.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yes. Yeah.
I suppose there's much more that I could say because he spoke about so much, but that was
Yeah.
one that was most true for
Yeah.
me.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Anyone else? Himanshi and Preeti, would you like to share now or later? Okay. Preeti is saying later. So Himanshi, I think Himan. Okay. Okay. Great. Yes, Preeti, you want to share now? Okay, so let's go ahead in that case. If not any sharings at the moment, just please feel free to unmute, share, or share in the chat window whenever you feel like sharing next. So yes, this prayer is like like a little tool of liberation each moment. When we talk about dropping off the past, because we are so sticky creatures in nature that we keep on sticking to either some identity, some definition of myself, some story of myself, some image of myself. This is who I am and this is what I am seeking, and that becomes very rigid, like a permanent thing for us, while we are evolving beings and we are constantly changing, yet we do not change those definitions. They stick to us badly, and more often than not they hamper the growth, they hamper our progress. And when we were talking about to drop the past and move towards the future, it's not only moving towards the future. Dropping the past also brings me more in touch with the present. So if I'm going through a challenging phase, and I suddenly drop the whole story about that challenging phase that I have currently I'm experiencing, I see that things actually become much, much, much simpler and lighter. Suddenly, once I drop that story, maybe it was a relationship that changed, or maybe some separation happened, or maybe loss of a loved one. If we just drop the story, the whole past that associated myself with that situation, immediately I see that I come face to face with the facts, with the present truths of life. And we are somehow made like that, since our journey is from obscurity to light. And that's why there is a lot of obscurity, there's a lot of darkness still that we see in our life. And that is okay, because that is the game, that is the very, very game that we plunged into. Many and many times I have used this thing from the mother, that mother said that then all the souls plunged into this movement from darkness to light, and that became a play actually. So can we, if not at all the times, can we at times at least look at this as a play? That yes, this darkness is something I signed a contract for. There's no one out there who is wanting to play with my life, plunging me into darkness. And actually, this play of darkness and light then becomes really beautiful. It doesn't become a misery for me once I begin to enjoy the journey through darkness, the adventure through darkness. And as Taru was sharing in the beginning, that it's not so easy, it's not so easy. And I was actually going to ask that who loves easy jobs? If you look at your life, isn't the most challenging ones, periods of your life have given you the most? So who wants to have it easy? So easy becomes a monotone, easy becomes a bore, kind of a boredom. Easy becomes a mechanical pattern. And thank God for the vital, we have colors in life, I would say, because it's through vital that we experience, as you were saying, Taru, that the rasa is experienced through the vital. The prana, the life force, is the movement of the vital. Otherwise we'll be just mechanical robotic beings, and I don't see any fun in that. Personally, I don't see any fun in that. There may be, that you move from milestone to milestone, okay, works are being done, but there is no challenge there. You are not getting trapped anywhere, you are not getting overcoming any obstacle. It's only intellectual. So I don't know, maybe it's my personal definition, that I somehow see that this play of obscurity, falling into grip of a challenge, then rising through it, finding a deeper space within us. I think the whole game is so interesting once we look at it that way. And this thing about dropping the past, this is available to us each moment. The very fact that the whole creation exists on the basis of free will. When mother talks about surrender, mother says that it's a free will based surrender. The surrender is free. At one moment I can be completely owing to my free will in a rather virtually complete state of surrender. And at the other moment, I decide that no, I want to cling on to my past. I don't want to surrender. So I take it back. And that is the movements that I have to go through. That is my free will. And we all have seen those phases in our life where we have been able to drop the past just like that. Yes, it was necessary. We were capable of that and we did it. Yet the past is something that keeps on recreating itself and also keeps on sticking again and again. And that is why this is a lifelong process. This cannot be said, okay, I am enlightened and my work is complete. I have no more past sticking onto me. My work is done. One can never say that. And that's why the challenge is ever present. The challenge is always there. What is a life without those challenges? Who wants it easy? I personally see that when we do effort for something and we then see a result, there is a certain joy that comes, the joy of progress. And this joy of progress is directly connected to the souls that we are. Souls love to progress. And they love to progress in their own unique ways. The psychic beings, the psychic individuality, we all have our own unique ways to progress. And those are all allowed. Those are all welcome. We are allowed to fall into the grips of darkness because they are there for a reason. We are allowed even when we are not able to drop past, because that struggle of not being able to drop the past immediately is also a process in my journey. So can I begin to honor that? And not just a second, I the connection issue in between. Yeah. So can I not, just run towards the future? Can I not run towards the future that, oh my God, I am a, disciple of Sri Aurobindo and Mother, and I need to, find this salvation somewhere in future. Can you hear me? I am seeing that connection is lost. Are you able to hear?
You keep getting
Okay, now it's
disconnected
back,
in
I guess.
between.
Yeah. Are you able to hear me?
Mostly yes, but the voice keeps going off and on in between.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I think I got disconnected in between. So I'll just kind of reiterate. I don't know how much was lost. So I was saying that the phases of darkness, the phases of, yeah, am I audible now? Okay, thanks for sharing. Yeah. So these phases of darkness, the plunges in darkness are very, very relevant for me. They are important for me. If the game was all bright from the very beginning, there will be no game at all. The game is from darkness to light, and that is why it's a game. So can I also begin to enjoy this game in as much capacity as I can? To trying to allow the falls also, not only the victories but the falls also, because the falls are there for a reason. The falls are not there without a reason. As Mother says, each difficulty arises because it needs to, now get overcome in my being. So how would I overcome something which I don't even know exists in my being? And once I become an allowing space for those movements, then I also see that yes, I also have the strength in me to go on, to have victory over those movements. And like that, I keep on dropping the past and moving on to my present, which is my current reality. Yes, I see that anger is still there, and it's okay, it can stay. I just become aware of it. I'm not much moved by it. I allow it some space in my being, and I see that then it doesn't affect me that much, because going on this path of walking on this path of yoga, many a times we see far-fetched images in future, that this is who I will be in future. And sometimes looking at that image in the future, I lose my present reality. I fail to taste the rasa of the present moment. And though the present is not a burden on me, it appears like a burden on me only when I look at something in future and I say, oh my god, my present is so ugly, how dare it is there. Because the present is the stepping stone towards future. How can it be ugly? So there must be something in the present that I'm missing, if I'm finding it so loathsome, so hatesome. So the moment I'm available to the present reality of my being, this is who I am right now, I see that I can very easily take steps towards future. Then it is not a big deal. But the moment I see the whole past, like like a baggage on my back, that oh my god, I have been seeking for 20-30 years and nothing, to no avail, then it really becomes a burden. So as Eric was sharing, that it's so easy to be a child of the mother, because a child is just there. The child is enjoying, look at the infant child. A child is enjoying its movements in the present. A child is not judging himself again and again. A child is allowing himself to fall and then get up. A child is allowing himself to do all kinds of stupidities and yet go on. So being a child is absolute freedom. Only as adults we begin to judge ourselves. A child doesn't judge. A child has no shame, no guilt. No victim identity is associated with the child. A child is not trying to protect any image of itself. And that's why it's so easy. It's like in innocence, we can just be who we are, ourselves, truly ourselves, owning our perfections, imperfections. And that is all okay, because these are the stepping stones towards future. They are all allowed. Those movements are very, very welcome. My falls are welcome, because they are the ones who are making me walk. That's why being a child is most simplest. And if we don't put a big burden on ourselves, that I have to be the like a sadhak, or I have to be the disciple of Sri Aurobindo and mother, and this is how I should be, and that is not how I should behave, oh that is like a sin, all these definitions then drop. A child even is not carrying his past baggage. A child doesn't even know that he is a child. That kind of an innocence. Owning ourselves completely in our movements. And definitely there is a walk towards future. No one can stop that. We don't have to make it happen. It will happen by itself. The walk towards future will happen. And then it becomes more like an happening, rather than putting a lot of effort and then trying hard to change my destiny. Yes. Yes, and as we were sharing in the beginning, that we want to perpetuate the past, because we are in this adult mode, and uh, the mind is very, very active. The mind wants to have stories. The mind lives on the stories, because a story is a domain of the known. I know my story. This is who I am. A mind fears to be in the unknown. A mind fears the uncertainty about lives. And that's why it keeps on recreating those stories in the head, the images about myself in the head. And once we become truly surrendered to the present moment, who we are in the moment, who we are right now, not judging, not boxing ourselves into pictures, we see that actually it's not difficult to move on, to live this life. It's actually not difficult. Mind can be used where it is usable, in calculation, in figuring out things, in planning, mind may be used. But otherwise, mind can be actually put to rest. Because life is such a mysterious phenomenon. I cannot box it into images and identities and labels. I cannot. I will suffer badly if I keep on doing that continuously. Even the story of my life will keep on changing. But my habit of the mind is that it keeps on holding on to the past stories. And when the past stories break, it hurts. When my dreams created by the mind breaks, it hurts. So if we are only living by the mind, not aware of the present raw movements of the life, we see that we get hurt badly again and again, again and again. On one hand, it's also good because it tells me that I am creating again and again more and more stories in my head. On one hand, it's actually good. This hurt is very beautiful because the hurt is telling me that only my stories are hurt, only my dreams are being shattered. There is nothing being lost actually. So, can I also allow that hurt to happen? It's okay. It can be there. Only stories can shatter, only dreams can shatter. Who we are truly can never ever get shattered. So I never lose anything. I don't need to perpetuate the past stories. They may be needed in the past, but now they are not needed. So I can just let them go and maybe create a new story. And then maybe recreate, or maybe learn to live without any stories. That's another possibility. Just like a child does. A child is not wanting to be surrendered. A child is fully surrendered. He doesn't even know about the surrender. That's the kind of surrender, it's an surrender in oblivion. We have to surrender. We as adults have to surrender because we keep on holding to identities and definitions about ourselves, and those need to be surrendered so that we can be alive in the present life that is in the front. For a child, surrender is absolute, and surrender is uh, in oblivion. He doesn't have to do it. It's effortless surrender. He's not trying to protect anything. So for us adults, the question of surrender then becomes important. Becoming a child again becomes important for us. Yeah. And then Sri Aurobindo, as he quotes from the synthesis of yoga, to be perpetually reborn is the condition of immortality. How beautiful is this? To be perpetually reborn. Amazing. One needs like it's like a fearlessness comes into being. Even the word fearlessness appears so trivial in front of this statement. To be perpetually reborn shamelessly. And to be perpetually reborn also means that all those labels and identities which are dead from the past that I am carrying, they need not be there on my back. I need not carry them. When I am alive in this moment, fully alive to the drama, to the reality of life, who on earth needs an image about myself? Who on earth am I trying to protect? And can't I see that in trying to protect an image of myself, I waste so much of energy? Can't I see that? So can I put that energy, that life force into living this life fully? Doing what I really, really love to do, which makes me move further, which elevates me. Living really, truly, fully. Can we put all that energy there rather than trying to protect a certain image of myself? Because people know that I have been doing sadhana for 20 years. So this is the image I must protect. Who on earth cares for that image? Yet we waste so much energy in that, trying to prove ourselves to the world. Maybe it's not needed at all. So to be perpetually reborn, to be able to recreate ourselves, shamelessly redefine ourselves again and again, again and again, one follows the movement of universal becoming. This is so beautiful that the vast space, the presence that I am, in that vast presence, everything is allowed. All the movements are allowed because I am that being that can never change. And yet, being stationed there, I can allow myself to become whoever I want to become. There is no threat to that becoming. Threat only is to images and definitions. To a being stationed in the being and becoming in future or in the present, there is no threat because one is not trying to save any image. So again reinventing ourselves, rediscovering our depths, rebirthing ourselves again and again. So this is the crux of this prayer, and just going through the prayer once. December 29, 1913. O Lord, grant that this collective convention of the end of the year may be for us an opportunity for finishing at once with the whole mass of ties and attachments, illusions, and weaknesses that have no longer any reason for existence in our life. We spend so much time in decluttering our homes. If we could also do that to our own selves, because we are made of the same matter of which our houses are made. The matter is the same. The principle may be a little different here and there in movement, but the matter is the same. So the principles are same. Just like we have to clean the house every day, just like we have to declutter our houses every once in a while, we also, if not every day, we have to declutter as much as possible in our capacities, our own being. And then we see, oh my God, I haven't used this tendency of mine for 20 past years now. Do I still want to keep it? Can I just let it go? Why does it need to emerge in my being again and again? I don't need to fight it anymore. It may be important in my childhood, but now it's not important anymore. It's not serving me well. So can I let it go? Those ties, those bonds, those attachments which have no longer any reason for existence in our life. The dead baggage. And how do we drop that? Because if I'm not even available to the movements of my being, how would I even know that some movements can be dropped and some maybe can stay for some time? How would I even know? And that's why mother would say that become very, very intimate with your inner movements of life. Become very, very friendly to the inner movements so that you know what is all there in your being, so that you know the content of your being in as much capacity as possible. So mother is using this collective convention, as Taru was sharing in the beginning, that we can actually use this opportunity rather than finding faults with it. You can, okay, there is a convention that this is the day of the new year, and We begin afresh. We feel that as we begin afresh, a new year, every new year. So can we just let all the past baggage, not necessary, go, reinvent ourselves and begin as a new person, available to life more than what I was previously, opening myself to life and maybe breaking my walls further and further and further, allowing myself to be vulnerable to life as it presents itself, not trying to protect and defend and create walls against myself. Can I become a newborn again? Is it possible? Using that convention of the new year. Yes. And Mother shares here that when you are conscious, when you see the movements within you without you, you see that actually the whole world at each moment is vanishing and recreating itself. How? Even if you go to the physical reality of the matter, if you talk about physics, the electrons, the movements of protons, the neutrons, the little particles that are not seen in daily movements, you will see that they are dying each moment and rejuvenating each moment. The body that I am, it may look on the appearance that for the past 10 days it is the same, but really, is it the same? Is it not dying each moment? Is it not recreating itself each moment? Is not a new gray hair developing each moment and the black one dying each moment? Is it not happening? Are not the past thoughts vanishing and something new is arising? Is it not happening? Am I not discovering and rediscovering my own deeper layers? So even if we look at the physical reality of the matter, we see that it's an absolute truth that the world is vanishing and recreating each moment, which is very visible when we go out in forest, in nature. How the trees are evolving every day. Old leaves are falling, they are mingling with mud, becoming compost. From there, new saplings are arising. And on the tree, new leaves are being given space. So this vanishing and recreating is happening each moment of our worldly existence, and I am a part of it. It's only when I become too rigid an entity and see my wall as this boundary wall of my body and this boundary wall of my mind, only then I become as if a stone, a rock on the way of the universal flow of life. This is the wall of obscurity, that this is who I am and who I am can never change. This is the wall of obscurity that I become around myself. And when I stop protecting myself, when I become vulnerable, open to life, then I see myself also as fluid as I see the movements of the nature as fluid. One says that one can never step in the same river again. The river is changing each second, each millisecond. The river is changing. On the whole, on the appearance, it may look, yes, this is the Brahmaputra, this is the Ganges, but it's just the name that remains the same. The movement of the river is ever changing movement. The content, even if we look at the chemical content of the river, we will always find changes in the chemical content of the river. So even that is not the same. What we live in, the mental reality, is for us the name becomes a problem. The moment I name a river, I think I know it. The moment I name a person, this is my friend, I know him, I have been with him for 20 years or 30 years, I think that this is a limited definable being and there is nothing more to him or her. Is that true? We see that it's not true. We see that we ourselves do not know ourselves in fullness. How can I know another person in fullness? There is so much more to any finite being any finite being is actually infinite. So I can never say I have understood this person, not even myself. I can never say that statement. It will be a fallacy. And this is how we can actually come to the present reality that yes, it is actually being recreated. Yes. Yes. Any thoughts so far? Any comments? Any thoughts? Okay. So then further, just connecting with the prayer further, we must at each moment shake off the past like falling dust so that it may not soil. Yes. We must at each moment shake off the past like falling dust so that it may not soil the virgin path which also at each moment opens before us. So, yes, I see that I have two probabilities. One probability is that I keep on remaining stuck in the past and do not see the present gift of life that lies in front of me. The other possibility, if I am available to that possibility, is that once I am able to drop the past, if I am capable enough to do that, then I see that yes, even the present reality that presents itself today to me is full of gifts actually. Somehow I see always what is lacking, what is lacking, what is lacking. Because the stories about my future were lost. The stories about, having a life with a person, how I dreamt about that life is lost. That does not mean that the life that is present today is any less. So, can I also become available to the second option available to me, which is yes, the past was there. I had a story which broke off. I had a dream which shattered, and that dream cannot be fulfilled anymore in the vision that I imagined it to be. Yet, can I stand up again, or maybe on my knees? Can I allow myself to recreate myself again from the pieces that lie in front of me? Can I allow myself that possibility? And then we see that actually this is a possibility. Yes, I can live with that pain of a lost future, of a lost dream. It is allowed. To live with pain is allowed. I don't have to either shoo off the pain immediately. The pain will be get dropped off as and when I am ready. So yes, I see that I am hurt badly. Yes, I see that the story I was holding on to is also not anymore there. Yet I am alive. The life in front of me is alive. I'm still kicking. And can I just pick up and gather my pieces from there and see if I can do something with that? Maybe create another new alchemy out of it. So not trying to, shed off the past and trying to shoo it off and move on into the future, because that we see that it becomes really a big trouble for us. We are not able to do that. Not in a hurry to move on. So just allowing all the pain to be there, allowing all the grief to be there, yet also being available to the gift of life as it is in front of me today. And then mother says that a new path, also a virgin path, an uncharted territory, a virgin path, a path which is totally unique for me. No one can guide me on that path. I have to adventure on it. Also opens at each moment in front of me. So can I allow that magical unfolding to happen?
Screen is not visible, Monica.
Okay, yeah, I'll just share it again. Thank you for sharing. Yes. Yeah. And we often begin to have, this feelings of guilt. Oh my God, I was so ignorant and I was, bound to the past. That is another mind game. So can we also become present to that? That first of all, I was in my ignorance. I could not help it and I was attached to the past. And now I am attached. Why am I attached? Why was I attached to the past? So it is another attachment going on and on and on. It's as if it's a never ending mind game. And becoming like a child again, becoming a shameless as a child again, becoming alive as a child again allows me not to be attached to any ideas of what a perfect life is, to embrace life in its fullness and to begin from there, to begin from where I am today. Right? So that is also one possibility one can contemplate on. Yeah. May our errors recognized and repaired within us be no longer anything else than vain mirages, incapable of producing any consequences, and may we, setting our foot firmly on all that should no more be, on all ignorances, all obscurities, all egoisms, boldly take our flight towards larger horizons. I think in whatever capacity, all of us do that. All of us do this, the paragraph that we just read. The degree may be a bit here and there, we are able to step on our mistakes as stepping stones. We are able to step on our past as stepping stones and move towards the present, and that is why all of us are here today. If not for those errors as stepping stones, we'll not be here today. So all of us are able to do that. The thing is that the mind always craves for more. The mind always wants to seek and seek and seek and seek, as if there is something wrong with the present reality today. So it says, no, 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 I'm able to do that, but that is not enough, that is not enough. So it always kind of creates this a feeling of restlessness, kind of a haste, that I am not yet there, and once I am there, I'll be a different person. Is that really true? Can I challenge that? Is that really true? And mother says that on this path of yoga, there is no space for haste. A lot of perseverance is required. And perseverance will stay with me only when I allow myself to take the baby steps and not, run away to some far-fetched future in haste. So we do that, our errors are repaired. We recognize our errors in as much capacity as possible. I'm sure more and more is a possibility, and we will be doing that as and when we become more and more capable of doing that. And then those tendencies or past old patterns of our own behavior, they don't have that much of grip over us, that much, because we see that yes, that tendency or that pattern of behavior was there because it was necessary maybe for some time, but now I have learned through it. So I can allow myself to go past. There is no point holding on to that image of myself. Yes, our errors are his steps upon the way. So errors are the steps. Errors are not to be hidden or to be shunned away. They are to be recognized and validated. And when their work is over, they dissolve. They do their work and get dissolved. So becoming, really gloomy about our mistakes and, going into guilt. Oh my God, how on earth I could do that? I was doing sadhana for so many years. How did that sin happen to me? All that is actually rubbish, because even that sin, if it happened, so-called sin, it was there for a reason. It wanted some light. And there is no sin per se. The very fact that it has been allowed by the existence tells me that it was necessary for it to emerge. So there is no sin per se. That sin also came for, uh, for being a stepping stone on my path. Yes. And then we were talking about this movement of grace, how it can completely annul karma. And just touching upon a little aspect of grace, that the moment I allow myself to own myself completely, not living in my images about myself, then the karma does not have any hold over me. Karma has only hold over me when I try to protect an image of myself, that this is who I am, this is who I have been for ages, and these are the past karmas I have done, and this is what I must, try to. So, for example, I have to pay the debts. So, if I am this solid, rigid entity, the ego, only then the karma is valid. The consequence of karma is valid. The moment I allow myself to get rid of that limited image of myself, I am actually free from karma in that moment. I am allowing myself to respond to a particular situation in my fullness, in my wholeness. I am not acting out of a limited image of myself. And in that, karma is annulled. That is the falling of grace in my life. That is how grace acts. When I'm not acting out of images or definitions of myself. Yes. I think this aspect of being a child, Eric also touched upon it, and I've shared a little bit on it. One can, take further time to contemplate. And Mother shares further, and an intenser light, a more perfect compassion, a more disinterested love towards thee. Usually if we are on this path of sadhana, we see that even there we are wanting some results in return. Why am I not in a lot of peace? I have been on this path of surrender for 1 year, 1 full year now. Why am I not getting more and more peace? Why is bliss not a reality for me? So even there, even on the path of surrender, even on the path of yoga, we see that we have so many hidden interests lying there. We have a certain imagination of what bliss is like. We have a certain imagination of what peace is like, and we keep on striving towards it even on the path of yoga. We are still missing the present moment, the vast space of presence that I am, in which all the movements are allowed. I don't have to shoo away, run away from any movement. So even surrender and even yoga becomes then a game of ego, because the ego wants to achieve something out of this surrender. I want to achieve a perfect state of bliss through yoga. Again, a seeking has begun. While yoga, if we look at yoga, it must be actually a dissolution of seeking. That once I have the feet of God, the feet of Lord are present within me, why do I crave for anything else? Can't I go through all the challenges in life? Yes, so let me just take what Eric has shared in the chat window. It is no longer sufficient to be a warrior, nor sufficient even to be a hero. What should we be? Something greater than a hero. One must be a yogi. The yogi is one who has the divine consciousness or mother's consciousness. If you find that it is not so easy for one to be a yogi, even if one tries sincerely, I suggest to you another alternative. It is to leap into another dimension, to be a child of the mother. Beautiful, beautiful. I think this is just it. One need not then contemplate like an adult on it. Once we are in love with the mother, there need not be any more words. Uh, kind of no kind of words are required. Yeah. So, mother is talking about this disinterested love. For example, if we look at this childlike trust in the divine, even that is a very disinterested love. One knows that one is always in the lap of mother. One can never ever go away. And whatever movements of life happen, they happen in the lap of the mother. So that kind of a unshakable faith of a child, then it actually, we see that implicitly it becomes very disinterested, because a child is not having any personal interest to become something in future. A child is not wanting to be anything else than himself. We adults are wanting to be always somebody. We want name, we want fame, we want either to be a sadhak, to be a disciple, to be a teacher, to be a therapist, to be a healer. And then we begin to try protect these images. A child is not wanting to do that. A child is fully content being a child. And then the love also becomes disinterested. It is without any interests from mother's love, that okay, if I have mother's love, this is what I want to achieve through mother's love. No sort of that agenda is there. Just love is enough onto itself. And the game just stops there. The seeking game just stops there. And yet life begins there. Life has a new beginning each moment. And then mother says, O Lord, I salute thee, O Master of all life, and I would proclaim thy reign upon earth. Kind of requesting again and again for all the mankind, for the divinity to reign on earth, to have the kingdom of divinity on earth for each and every being and creature on earth. So this is the beauty when we see in mother's prayers and meditations, that when mother is going through her own challenges and touching her own depths, she is also parallelly taking out a prayer for the whole of mankind. And when we go through our deeper challenges, we see that we connect to the mankind at a deeper level. We connect to reality, to humanity at a deeper level. So a deeper compassion comes forth naturally, organically. Yes. Yeah. So it's very important, it's good to be aware of the movements of mind, because then we are aware that the mind keeps on putting forth these demands and expectations even on the path of yoga every now and then. And once I become aware of those demands and expectations, I can just kind of see them. Yes, the demands are there, expectations are there, and just kind of let them be. Not trying to want to prove anything out of that, oh my God, why the demands and expectations are there. Not like that. And neither do I want to follow the demands and expectations. Just observing them like a witness, letting them be there, and we see that slowly they dissolve. They may come up again, and then they are allowed to stay for as long as they want, and then they again dissolve. One just kind of basks in this love that is present within each one of us. Allowing that space, that vast, limitless space that we are, to drench ourselves in deep and deeper love. Yeah, and that is what then spills out in our activities. Yes. Any thoughts, any comments? I think we have covered the prayer. Yes. So I would just request then, if no thoughts, any one of you to read the prayer. Just a second, I'm just collecting it, because this prayer somehow I didn't collect it at the bottom. I think this I already took. Yes. So who would like to maybe read the prayer once before we are done with the session? Anyone? Yes. So I hope you can see the screen. Who would like to read the prayer before we close? Yes, Eric, please.
Okay. O Lord, grant that this collective convention of the end of the year may be for us an opportunity for finishing at once with the whole mass of ties and attachments, illusions and weaknesses that have no longer any reason for existence in our life. We must at each moment shake off the past like falling dust, so that it may not soil the virgin path which, also at each moment, opens before us. May our errors, recognized and repaired within us, be no longer anything else than vain mirages incapable of producing any consequences. And may we, setting our foot firmly on all that should be no more, or no more be, on all ignorances, all obscurities, all egoisms, boldly take our flight toward larger horizons, and an intenser light, a more perfect compassion, a more disinterested love towards Thee. I salute Thee, O Lord, Master of all life, and I would proclaim Thy reign upon earth.
Yes. Once you read Eric again, so I remembered this one line from Kabir, where he says, "Har dam har ko gelo hai." So I'll just try to put it in English. It means to say that every breath is the way to the Lord. And the moment I'm able to drop off the past, in that very moment, I see that I've never lost my true home. And that moment is totally up to us. And that's why free will is there, that we never ever lost our true homes. We are always there. It's just a dream that we keep on getting onto again and again. So it can be shed any moment, every breath is the way to the Lord. Yeah. Yes. So thank you everyone for joining, and sorry for the troubles today. I think I had many connection issues in between. I'll just put up the recording in some time.
No worries.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Eric. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Chitra ji. Thank you everyone for joining.